The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty Wyoming road, turning the air thick and heavy. Sarah Mitchell's vision blurred as she stumbled forward, one hand gripping the wagon handle, the other clutching her youngest daughter's tiny fingers. Behind her, 3 more children trudged along, their faces sunburned and streaked with tears they were too tired to shed anymore. "Mama," 6-year-old Emma whimpered, "I'm so thirsty." Sarah's throat tightened. The canteen had run dry 2 miles back, maybe 3. She'd lost track of distance, lost track of time. All she knew was that they had to keep moving, had to reach Silver Creek before nightfall, had to find work, find shelter, find something before her babies starved. "Just a little further, sweetheart," she whispered, though her own legs trembled with each step. "We're almost there." It was a lie. Silver Creek was still 5 miles away, according to the last sign they'd passed. 5 miles might as well have been 50. The wagon wheel caught on a rut, and Sarah jerked forward. Pain shot through her blistered feet. Black spots danced across her vision. She blinked hard, trying to clear her head, but the world tilted sideways. "Mama!" Her oldest son, 12-year-old James, lunged forward to catch her, but he was too small, too weak from hunger himself. Sarah's knees buckled. The last thing she heard was her children crying her name before darkness swallowed her whole. She didn't see the dust cloud rising in the distance, didn't hear the thunder of hoofbeats approaching, didn't know that her life was about to change forever. Cole Branson saw them from a 1/4 mile away. At first, he thought it was a mirage. The heat played tricks out here on the open range. But as his horse closed the distance, the scene became horrifyingly clear. A woman collapsed in the dirt. 4 children huddled around her small body, their voices carried on the wind like wounded animals crying out. He'd been riding fence lines all morning, checking for breaks after last week's storm. Another hour, and he would have headed back to his ranch. Another hour, and he would have missed them entirely. The thought made his jaw clench. Cole pulled his horse to a stop and dismounted in one smooth motion. The children scattered backward like frightened rabbits, all except the oldest boy, who positioned himself protectively in front of his mother's unconscious form. "Stay back," the boy said, his voice cracking but brave. His thin chest heaved with exhaustion. "Don't you touch her." Cole raised his hands slowly, the way he would with a spooked colt. "Easy, son. I'm not here to hurt anyone." He kept his voice low and calm. "Your mama needs help. She needs water. When's the last time any of you had something to drink?" The boy's defiance crumbled. His lip trembled. "Yesterday morning." "Yesterday. Sweet Jesus." Cole grabbed his canteen from his saddle and approached slowly. The boy didn't move, didn't lower his guard, but he didn't try to stop Cole either when he knelt beside the woman. She was small. That was Cole's first thought. Delicate-boned and fine-featured, with dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. Her dress was worn but clean, carefully mended in several places. Her hands were blistered and raw. She couldn't have been more than 25 years old, and she was damn near dead from dehydration and heat exhaustion. Cole slipped one arm beneath her shoulders, cradling her head as he brought the canteen to her lips. "Come on, darling," he murmured. "Just a sip, that's all I need from you." The water touched her lips and she stirred, her throat working instinctively. Her eyelids fluttered. "That's it," Cole encouraged softly. Little more. Her eyes opened, pale green like new spring leaves, and focused on his face. For a moment, she simply stared at him. Then awareness flooded back, and she jerked away, struggling weakly in his arms. "The children," she gasped. "My children are fine," Cole assured her, keeping his hold gentle but firm. "All 4 of them, safe and sound, but they need water same as you." She looked past him and saw her babies watching with wide, frightened eyes. The fight drained out of her, and she sagged against his chest. "Thank God," she breathed. Then, with visible effort, she tried to push away from him. "I can manage. Thank you for your kindness, but we'll be fine now. We just need to rest a moment and then..." "Then what?" Cole asked quietly. "You planning to walk to Silver Creek in this heat, with 4 exhausted children and no water?" She stiffened in his arms. "That's none of your concern, sir." "Maybe not," he agreed. "But I'm making it my concern anyway." He looked up at the oldest boy. "What's your name, son?" The boy hesitated, then answered. "James Mitchell, sir." "James, I'm Cole Branson. I own the Triple B Ranch about 3 miles west of here." He shifted his gaze back to the woman in his arms. "And you are?" She pressed her lips together stubbornly. "Mama's name is Sarah," a small voice piped up. A little girl with golden curls peeked out from behind James. "And I'm Emma." "That's my sister Lucy." And that's baby Thomas. Baby Thomas couldn't have been more than 3 years old. He stared at Cole with solemn brown eyes, his thumb tucked in his mouth. "Well, Mrs. Mitchell," Cole said, emphasizing the title, though he'd noted no wedding ring on her finger. "Here's what's going to happen. You and your children are going to get on my horse and in my wagon, and I'm going to take you back to my ranch. You're going to eat a proper meal, drink as much water as you can hold, and rest. Then if you still want to head to Silver Creek, I'll take you there myself tomorrow morning." "I don't accept charity," Sarah said, her voice tight with pride. "Good, because I'm not offering charity." Cole's voice was firm, but not unkind. "I'm offering common decency. You've got 4 children depending on you, ma'am. Right now, your pride isn't worth a damn thing compared to their lives." The words hit her like a slap. Her eyes filled with tears she was too exhausted to hide. "I'm sorry," he said more gently. "That was harsh, but it's the truth, and I think you know it." She did know it. The knowledge had been eating at her for weeks. Ever since her husband's death had left her with nothing but 4 hungry mouths to feed and a wagon full of memories. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. "Just for tonight," she whispered. "We'll leave in the morning." Cole nodded, though he had a feeling tomorrow morning was going to look a lot different than she imagined. "Fair enough." He called to his horse, and the well-trained animal came immediately. Cole helped Sarah to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. She was even smaller standing up. The top of her head barely reached his shoulder. Something protective stirred in his chest, something he hadn't felt in the 5 years since he'd buried his young wife. He pushed the feeling aside. This was about helping someone in need, nothing more. But as he lifted Sarah onto his horse, as her body pressed briefly against his, and he caught the faint scent of lavender beneath the dust and sweat, something shifted inside him, something that had been locked away for a very long time. "You're safe now," he found himself whispering against her ear as he settled her in the saddle. "I promise you, you're safe." And for reasons she didn't understand and didn't have the strength to question, Sarah believed him. The Triple B Ranch appeared like an oasis in the desert. Sarah had expected something rough and utilitarian, a bachelor's domain of neglect and disorder. Instead, she found a well-maintained homestead with a sturdy 2-story house, a large barn, and several outbuildings, all painted a clean white with dark green trim. But what caught her attention most were the gardens. Flower boxes beneath every window, bursting with colorful blooms. A vegetable patch behind the house, neat rows of plants thriving despite the harsh climate. Someone had loved this place once, had made it a home. "My wife planted those," Cole said quietly, following her gaze as he helped her down from the horse. "She died in childbirth 5 years ago. The baby, too." Sarah's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I kept up the gardens. Seemed wrong to let them die too." Before Sarah could respond, the front door burst open and a stout woman with steel-grey hair and a flour-dusted apron emerged, her hands on her hips. "Cole Branson! What in the name of heaven?" She stopped short, taking in the scene before her. Her expression shifted instantly from irritation to concern. "Oh, you poor dears. Come inside, all of you. James, you help your mama. Emma, Lucy, Thomas, come with me. We'll get you all cleaned up and fed. This is Martha Henderson," Cole explained. "She's been my housekeeper and cook since, well, for a long time." Martha was already herding the children toward the house, clucking over them like a mother hen. Sarah started to follow, then stopped and turned back to Cole. "Thank you," she said simply. "You saved our lives today." Cole's dark eyes met hers, and for a moment the air between them felt charged with something Sarah couldn't name. Anyone would have done the same. "No," she said softly. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have ridden right past." He shifted uncomfortably, as if kindness was something he wasn't accustomed to receiving thanks for. "Go on inside. Martha will take good care of you." Sarah hesitated, wanting to say more, wanting to somehow convey the depth of her gratitude, but exhaustion weighed on her like a physical thing, and the words wouldn't come. "I don't even know how to thank you properly. You've given us hope when I had none left." Cole's expression softened. "No thanks necessary, Mom. I'm just doing what's right." He paused, then added quietly, "My Catherine used to say that we're put on this earth to help each other through the hard times. She'd have wanted me to help you." The mention of his late wife made Sarah's heart ache for him. To love someone so deeply that you still honor them 5 years after death. That was the kind of love she'd never experienced with John. She must have been a wonderful woman. "She was," Cole agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "The best I've ever known." His eyes swept over Sarah's face, lingering on her pale cheeks and cracked lips. "But right now, you need rest more than you need conversation. Go on now. We can talk more tomorrow." Sarah obeyed, but as she climbed the porch steps, she couldn't resist one last glance over her shoulder. Cole stood exactly where she'd left him, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Part concern, part curiosity, part something else entirely. When their eyes met, he touched the brim of his hat in acknowledgement, and something warm unfurled in her chest. "Stop it," she told herself firmly. "He's just being kind. Don't read anything more into it." But as she stepped into the cool interior of the house, she couldn't quite shake the feeling that her life had just changed in ways she didn't yet understand. The house smelled of fresh bread and lavender, and the floors gleamed with polish. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of a woman's touch, of Catherine's touch. The embroidered cushions on the chairs, the lace curtains at the windows, the careful arrangement of dried flowers in a vase on the hall table. Sarah felt like an intruder in another woman's sanctuary. Martha took charge with the efficient authority of a woman who'd raised 6 children of her own. Within minutes, the Mitchell children were seated around a large kitchen table, their faces scrubbed clean, cups of cool water in front of them. "Now we'll start slow," Martha instructed, setting out a plate of bread and butter. "Your stomachs have been empty too long to handle anything heavy right away. Small bites, and chew slowly." Emma reached for the bread with trembling fingers, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Is this really for us?" she whispered. "Every crumb, sweetheart," Martha said warmly, ruffling the little girl's golden curls. "And there's plenty more where that came from." Sarah watched her children devour the bread with tears streaming down her face. Emma ate like she was afraid someone would snatch the food away. Lucy kept glancing at Sarah for permission with each bite. James tried to act mature and controlled, but his hands shook as he brought the bread to his mouth. And little Thomas, her baby, stuffed his cheeks so full he looked like a chipmunk. When had she become so helpless? When had she failed them so completely? The guilt was crushing, a physical weight on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Martha noticed and squeezed her shoulder firmly. "None of that now. You're here, they're safe, and that's all that matters. You hear me? You got 4 living, breathing children who love you more than life itself. That makes you the strongest woman I know." She pulled out a chair with a decisive thump. "Sit down before you fall down. You're pale as a ghost." Sarah obeyed, her legs giving out beneath her. The simple kindness in Martha's voice, the lack of judgment, nearly undid her completely. Martha pressed bread and water into her hands, and the first bite tasted like heaven. Rich butter melting on her tongue, the bread still warm and soft. The second bite tasted like absolution, like maybe, just maybe, she hadn't completely failed as a mother. "How long have you been traveling?" Martha asked gently, settling into the chair across from her. 3 weeks, Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Since we left Nebraska." She stared at the bread in her hands, unable to meet Martha's eyes. "We've been walking for most of it. The horse gave out 2 weeks in, and I had to sell her for grain. Then the grain ran out." "Nebraska, that's a long journey for a woman alone with children. Where's your husband, child?" The bread turned to sawdust in Sarah's mouth. She forced herself to swallow, to push past the lump in her throat. "Dead, kicked by a horse 6 weeks ago. He died 3 days later." The words came out flat, emotionless, because if she let herself feel anything, she'd shatter completely. Martha's face softened with sympathy, her eyes glistening. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That must have been terrifying, being left alone like that." "The bank took our farm to settle his debts," Sarah continued, the words tumbling out now that she'd started, like poison she needed to purge. "Everything we owned went to auction. All I could save was what fit in that wagon. Some clothes, a few pots, my grandmother's quilt. I heard there was work in Silver Creek, a new hotel opening, looking for chambermaids and laundresses. I thought," she swallowed hard, her voice breaking, "I thought we could make a fresh start. I thought I could provide for my babies, but the journey was harder than I expected. The weather, the terrain, the cost of supplies, I didn't know. I didn't know it would be this hard." "And you will make that fresh start," Martha said firmly, reaching across the table to grip Sarah's hand. "But not tonight. Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the next step. You're not alone anymore, you understand. Cole brought you here, and that means something. That man doesn't open his home to just anyone. I can't impose on Mr. Branson's hospitality, Sarah started, but Martha cut her off with a dismissive wave. Cole's hospitality is his own business, and he offered it freely. You think he'd bring you all the way out here just to turn you out tomorrow? That boy has a heart bigger than Wyoming, even if he tries to hide it. Martha's eyes took on a distant look. Besides, she added with a knowing smile that made Sarah's cheeks warm, that man hasn't let anyone stay in this house since his wife died. Not even me, and I've been trying to move into the spare room for years to save myself the ride from town every day. The fact that he brought you here, into Catherine's home, well, that tells me something. It tells you he's a good man who helped someone in need, Sarah said quickly, her heart beating faster despite herself. Nothing more. Martha just smiled mysteriously and said nothing, which somehow made Sarah more nervous than any argument would have. The older woman stood and began preparing another plate of food. You need more than bread. Let me get you some cheese and cold chicken, and I've got fresh milk from this morning. After the children had eaten their fill, slowly, carefully, with Martha monitoring every bite to ensure they didn't make themselves sick, Martha showed them to a large bedroom upstairs with 2 beds and a trundle. The room was spacious and airy, with windows overlooking the garden. Quilts in cheerful colors covered the beds, and there was even a small bookshelf filled with children's stories. This was going to be the nursery, Martha said softly, running her hand along the footboard of one bed. Catherine had it all planned out. 2 beds for when the children got older, and that rocking chair in the corner for nighttime feedings. She cleared her throat. Emma, Lucy, and Thomas will share 1 bed. James will take the trundle. And Sarah, you'll have the other bed to yourself. Nice and cozy. Emma climbed onto one of the beds and sank into the mattress with a sigh of pure bliss. Mama, it's so soft, like sleeping on a cloud. Real sheets, Lucy breathed, touching the fabric reverently. Clean, white sheets that smell like sunshine. Sarah's throat tightened. Such simple things, clean sheets, soft beds, and her children were overwhelmed with joy. What kind of mother had she become that this was remarkable? There's a washroom down the hall, Martha continued, pretending not to notice Sarah's emotional struggle. I've already drawn water for baths. Hot water, mind you. I heated it on the stove. Get yourselves clean and settled, and I'll bring up some proper supper in an hour or so. Maybe some chicken soup and fresh rolls, something gentle on your stomachs. When Martha left, closing the door softly behind her, Sarah sank onto the edge of the bed and finally allowed herself to fully break down. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside, wrenching and ugly, all the fear and exhaustion and guilt she'd been holding back for weeks, pouring out in a flood. James was at her side immediately, his thin arms wrapping around her shoulders with surprising strength. At 12, he was trying so hard to be the man of the family, to be strong for her and his siblings. It's okay, Mama, he whispered fiercely, his own voice thick with unshed tears. We're safe now. We made it. Did we? Sarah gasped between sobs. James, I almost killed you. All of you. Another day, maybe 2, and we would have... She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't voice the terrible truth they'd all been avoiding. But we didn't, James insisted, pulling back to look at her with eyes far too old for his age. We didn't die, Mama. You got us here. You kept us going when any other woman would have given up. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. How had her 12-year-old son become the one comforting her? The role reversal made her heart ache, made her feel like even more of a failure. She should be the strong one, the protector, the one who had all the answers. I'm sorry, she whispered, holding him tight. I'm so sorry I couldn't do better for you. Your father left us with nothing, and I couldn't even... Papa left us with nothing, James interrupted firmly, and there was an edge of anger in his voice that shocked her. You got us this far with less than nothing. That makes you a hero, not a failure. Emma crawled across the bed to join them, her small arms wrapping around Sarah's waist. Don't cry, Mama. We love you so much. You're the best mama in the whole world. Lucy came next, silent as always, but her embrace spoke volumes. And Thomas, not fully understanding but knowing his mama was sad, climbed into her lap and patted her cheeks with his chubby hands. No cry, Mama, he said solemnly. The nice cowboy man will take care of us now. Sarah let out a watery laugh despite herself. Oh, my sweet boy. It's not Mr. Branson's job to take care of us. We can't depend on his kindness forever. But even as she said the words, she wondered. The way Cole had looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the gentleness in his touch as he'd helped her onto his horse, the fact that he'd brought them here, to his home, his sanctuary, the place he'd kept sacred to his wife's memory for 5 years. No, she was reading too much into it, projecting her desperate need for security onto a man who was simply being decent. She couldn't afford to hope for more. Then she pulled back and managed a smile for all 4 of her watching children. Her brave, resilient, beautiful children who deserved so much more than she'd been able to give them. "Bath time," she announced, forcing brightness into her voice. "And I want to see behind those ears. Mr. Branson and Mrs. Henderson have been very kind to us, and we're going to be the best guests they've ever had. We'll be respectful and grateful, and tomorrow we'll continue on to Silver Creek and start our new life." As she helped Thomas out of his dusty clothes, Sarah tried not to think about tomorrow, tried not to wonder what would happen when they reached Silver Creek and discovered that maybe the job wasn't quite what she'd hoped for, tried not to remember the feeling of Cole Branson's strong arms holding her steady, or the way his dark eyes had seemed to see straight through to her soul. One day at a time, she reminded herself as she scrubbed the dirt from Thomas's soft skin. That's all she could handle, one day at a time. Downstairs, Cole stood at the kitchen window, ostensibly watching the sun set, but actually replaying the moment he'd lifted Sarah Mitchell onto his horse. The way she'd felt in his arms, small and fragile, but with a core of steel he could sense even in her weakened state. The way those green eyes had looked at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. The way her body had pressed against his for those brief seconds, and how his heart had stuttered in response. He'd thought those feelings were dead, buried with Catherine 5 years ago, along with the baby son he'd never gotten to meet. They'd planned to name him Daniel, after Cole's father. Catherine had been 8 months along, glowing with health and happiness when the pains started. By morning, they were both gone, and Cole's world had shattered into pieces he'd never quite managed to put back together. For 5 years, he'd existed rather than lived. Worked the ranch from sunup to sundown, pushing himself to exhaustion so he'd be too tired to dream. Kept Catherine's things exactly as she'd left them, tended her gardens like a sacred duty, turned away every widow woman in 3 counties who'd tried to spark his interest with casseroles and hopeful smiles. And now, after one afternoon with a desperate widow and her 4 starving children, he felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Not love. He wasn't fool enough to think you could fall in love in an afternoon, but something, a stirring, a crack in the walls he'd built around his heart. "You planning to just stare out that window all night, or are you going to tell me what you're thinking?" Martha asked from behind him, her voice knowing and slightly amused. Cole didn't turn around. "I'm thinking I did what anyone would do, found someone in trouble and helped." The sound was heavy with skepticism. Martha came to stand beside him, her arms crossed over her ample chest. "And I suppose that's why you haven't stopped thinking about her for the past 2 hours? Why you kept watching the house like you expect her to vanish into thin air?" "I haven't." Cole stopped, recognizing the futility of lying to Martha. The woman had known him since he was in short pants, had helped his mother through 3 difficult births, had been at his wedding to Catherine, and had held him when he'd wept over their graves. If anyone could see through him, it was Martha. "She needs help, Martha. Those kids were half-starved. Another day, maybe 2. I know, boy. I saw." Martha's voice softened. "You did a good thing today. Catherine would be proud." The mention of his wife's name should have brought pain, but instead, Cole felt a strange sense of permission. Catherine had made him promise, in those last lucid moments before the pain took her completely, that he would find someone else someday, that he would let himself love again. "I made a promise," he'd said, holding her hand as her life slipped away. "For better or worse, Catherine, I'm not leaving you." "You're not leaving me, you stubborn man," she'd whispered, her voice weak but fierce. "I'm leaving you, and I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll find someone else. Promise me you'll let yourself be happy again. I can't bear the thought of you alone for the rest of your life, Cole. Promise me." He'd promised, even though the words had tasted like ash. And for 5 years, he'd told himself he was keeping that promise by staying open to the possibility, even as he closed his heart to every opportunity. But Sarah Mitchell, with her proud tilt to her chin and her fierce love for her children, with her blistered hands and determined eyes, had somehow slipped past his defenses without even trying. "So, you're going to help her get to Silver Creek tomorrow like you promised," Martha said, pulling him back to the present. "Yes." "And then what?" "Then she finds work and starts her new life." Martha was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "Cole, I've worked at that hotel. I know Jacob Tanner, the owner. He's a hard man who pays next to nothing and expects his employees to work from dawn till midnight. A woman alone with 4 children won't make enough to survive, let alone thrive. She'll end up right back where she started, desperate, starving, and alone." Cole's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Then what would you have me do? I can't force her to stay here. She's got pride, that one. She won't accept charity." "Can't you?" Martha challenged. "You've got a big house that's been too empty for too long. You've got a ranch that runs smooth, but you work yourself to the bone because you've got nothing else to fill your days. You rattle around in this place like a ghost, Cole. And that woman upstairs has 4 children who need a safe home, and a mother who—" "Don't!" Cole cut her off sharply, his voice rough. "Don't go there, Martha. Catherine's only been gone 5 years. I can't just replace her." "I'm not asking you to replace her," Martha said firmly, gripping his arm and forcing him to look at her. "Catherine's irreplaceable, and you know it. I'm asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, God put Sarah Mitchell on that road today for a reason. For both your sakes. You've been half dead for 5 years, boy. Maybe it's time to start living again." Cole wanted to argue, but the words stuck in his throat, because part of him, a part he'd been trying desperately to ignore all afternoon, wondered if Martha might be right. He'd felt something today when he held Sarah, when he looked into those green eyes and saw the same bone-deep loneliness he'd been carrying for years. Not love, not yet, but possibility. The possibility of something more than the lonely existence he'd been living. The possibility that his house could be filled with laughter again, that his table could be crowded with family, that he could wake up in the morning and feel something other than grief and obligation. "She'll never agree to it," he said finally, his voice defeated. "She's got pride, that one. She'll want to make her own way." Martha patted his arm with a satisfied smile. "Then I guess you'll have to figure out how to make her an offer she can't refuse, one that lets her keep that pride while accepting your help. You're a smart man, Cole Branson. I have faith in you." With that cryptic advice, Martha headed back to her preparations for supper, leaving Cole alone with his thoughts and a growing realization that tomorrow morning was going to be a lot more complicated than he'd anticipated. Upstairs, Sarah scrubbed Thomas until he shone, helping him into the clean nightshirt Martha had provided. It was too big, probably one of Cole's old shirts cut down, but it was clean and soft, and her baby boy looked so content she wanted to cry all over again. One by one, she bathed her children, marveling at how quickly they'd gone from terrified and exhausted to giggly and playful. Children were resilient, thank God for that. Finally, when all 4 were clean and tucked into their beds, Sarah drew her own bath. The water was lukewarm by now, but she didn't care. She sank into it with a groan of pure relief, letting weeks of accumulated dirt and worry soak away. In the privacy of the washroom, she finally allowed herself to assess her situation honestly. She had $17.32 to her name. The wagon and horse were worth maybe another $50 if she could find a buyer. That was it. That was all that stood between her children and complete destitution. The job in Silver Creek had to work out. It simply had to. But what if Martha was right about the wages being low? What if she couldn't earn enough to feed her children? What if a knock at the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts? "Mrs. Mitchell?" Cole's voice muffled through the wood. "I've got some clothes here for you. Martha thought you might need them." Sarah's cheeks flamed. Just leave them outside the door, please. "Thank you." A pause, then, "There's supper waiting downstairs when you're ready. No rush." She waited until she heard his footsteps retreat, before cracking the door open and pulling in the bundle. A simple cotton dress in a soft blue, along with undergarments that made her blush even harder. All clean, all mended, all perfectly serviceable. Catherine's clothes, they had to be. Cole had kept his dead wife's clothing for 5 years, and now he was offering them to Sarah. The gesture was both heartbreaking and deeply kind. Sarah held the dress against her chest, thinking of the woman who'd worn it before her. A woman who'd been loved enough that her husband couldn't bear to part with her things. A woman who'd planted gardens and made this house a home. A woman whose place Sarah could never fill, even if Cole wanted her to. Even if she wanted to try. Sarah shook her head sharply. Ridiculous. She was reading far too much into simple kindness. Tomorrow she'd go to Silver Creek, get that job, and build a life for her children. She didn't need a man to save her. But as she dressed in Catherine's clothes and made her way downstairs, a small, traitorous part of her heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, being saved wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The dining room took Sarah's breath away. A long table made of polished oak, surrounded by chairs with needlepoint cushions. A hutch displaying delicate china, curtains that matched the tablecloth. Every detail spoke of a woman's touch, a woman's love. Cole stood when she entered, his eyes widening slightly as he took in her appearance. That dress... He cleared his throat. It suits you. Sarah smoothed the skirt self-consciously. Mrs. Henderson said you wouldn't mind if I've overstepped. No, he said quickly. No, it's fine. Catherine would have wanted her things used, not collecting dust in a trunk. He pulled out a chair for her. Please, sit. Martha appeared with a tray laden with food. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh vegetables, and golden biscuits that made Sarah's mouth water. The children are already fed and sleeping like angels, she reported. James tried to stay awake, but exhaustion won out. They'll be right as rain after a good night's rest. As Martha served the meal, Sarah tried not to attack her food like a starving animal, but it was difficult. Everything tasted like heaven. Cole ate steadily, but she noticed him watching her from beneath lowered lashes, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Thank you, she said finally, setting down her fork, for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness. No repayment necessary, Cole said. I'm just glad I was there when you needed help. An awkward silence fell. Sarah searched for something to say, some way to fill the quiet that had suddenly become charged with an awareness she didn't want to acknowledge. You have a beautiful home, she managed finally. Catherine did, Cole corrected gently. I just maintain it. You do more than that. The gardens are thriving. The house is spotless. You honor her memory. Something flickered in Cole's dark eyes. Pain, maybe. Or gratitude. I try. Some days it's harder than others. I understand, Sarah said softly. My husband has been gone 6 weeks, and some mornings I still expect to see him at the breakfast table. Were you happy in your marriage? The question was too personal, too intimate for virtual strangers. But something about the way Cole asked it, with genuine curiosity rather than prurience, made Sarah answer honestly. I was content, she said carefully. John was a good man, a good father, but love, the kind of love poets write about, the kind that sets your soul on fire, we didn't have that. We were practical partners building a life together. And now I'm alone, Sarah said, the words coming out more bitter than she'd intended. Now, I have 4 children depending on me, and no idea if I'm strong enough to carry that weight. Cole leaned forward, his gaze intense. You're strong enough. You walked 20 miles in brutal heat with no water and 4 frightened children. You didn't give up, didn't abandon them, didn't take the easy way out. That's not weakness, Sarah. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. The use of her first name sent a shiver down her spine. His voice wrapped around it like a caress, intimate and warm. Mr. Branson. Cole, he interrupted. Please. Mr. Branson makes me feel like I'm 60 years old instead of 32. Cole, she corrected, the name feeling strange on her tongue. I appreciate your faith in me, but the truth is, I'm terrified. What if the job in Silver Creek doesn't work out? What if I can't earn enough? What if you didn't have to do it alone? Sarah froze. I don't understand. Cole took a deep breath as if steeling himself. I have a proposition for you. Hear me out before you say no. Her heart began to pound. I'm listening. This ranch runs smooth, but it's too big for one man. I've been thinking about hiring help. Someone to manage the house, help with the books, maybe do some cooking. Martha's getting older, and the ride from town is hard on her. She'd still come out during the day, but having someone here full-time would make things easier. You're offering me a job, Sarah said slowly. I'm offering you and your children a home, Cole corrected. You'd have your own room, privacy, respect. The children could attend school in town. I'd drive them myself every morning. In exchange, you'd help run the household, fair wages, room and board included. It was too good to be true. Too perfect, too much like an answer to prayers she'd been too afraid to voice. "Why?" Sarah asked suspiciously. "Why would you do this for strangers?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw with honesty. "Because this house has been empty for too long. Because those children deserve better than 16-hour workdays and poverty. Because you remind me that there's still good in the world worth protecting." He met her eyes. "And because when I held you today, when I thought you might die on that road, something inside me woke up. Something I thought was dead and buried with my wife." Sarah's breath caught. "Cole, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he said quickly. "This is a business arrangement, nothing more. Separate rooms, proper respectability. But if, over time, we found that we enjoyed each other's company, if we discovered that maybe loneliness doesn't have to be a permanent state." He trailed off, leaving the possibility hanging between them. Sarah's mind raced. It was madness. She barely knew this man, but the alternative, struggling alone in Silver Creek, watching her children go hungry, working herself to death for pennies, that was madness too. "I need to think about it," she whispered. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Cole stood, giving her space. "I'm going to check on the horses. When you're ready, Martha can show you to your room." He left before Sarah could respond, leaving her alone with a decision that would change the course of her entire life. She thought about her children, asleep upstairs in clean beds with full bellies. She thought about the long, uncertain road to Silver Creek. She thought about Cole's dark eyes and gentle hands, about the way he'd whispered, "You're safe now," as if he meant it with every fiber of his being. And she thought about possibility, the slim, terrifying, exhilarating possibility that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry this burden alone anymore. Sarah found Cole in the barn, brushing down his horse with long, methodical strokes. He looked up when she entered, his expression carefully neutral, as if bracing himself for rejection. "I have conditions," Sarah said without preamble. Hope flickered across his face. "I'm listening. First, this is a business arrangement, employee and employer. Nothing more unless we both decide otherwise. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear." "Second, my children come first, always. If at any point I feel they're unsafe or uncomfortable, we leave. No arguments." "Agreed." "Third, I want fair wages, enough to save money so that if this doesn't work out, we have options. I won't be trapped." "More than fair wages," Cole countered. "And a contract in writing so you have security." Sarah took a shaky breath. "Then yes. I accept your offer." The smile that broke across Cole's face transformed him, made him look younger, lighter, almost boyish in his relief. "You won't regret this, Sarah. I swear to you I'll take care of you and your children." "I can take care of myself," Sarah said firmly, even as warmth spread through her chest at his words. "I know you can," Cole agreed. "But maybe you don't have to anymore." They stood there in the soft lamplight of the barn, the moment stretching between them, heavy with promise and possibility. Sarah knew she should leave, should go back to the house and maintain proper distance, but her feet wouldn't move. "Cole," she said softly, "why did you really bring me here?" "The truth." He set down the brush and turned to face her fully. "The truth. When I saw you collapsed on that road with your children crying around you, something inside me broke. I've been half alive for 5 years, Sarah, going through the motions but not really living. Then you opened your eyes and looked at me, and for the first time since Catherine died, I felt something." "What did you feel?" Sarah whispered. Cole stepped closer, near enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Purpose. Connection. Hope that maybe I could be more than just a man waiting to die." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm not your dead wife. I can't replace her. I don't want you to replace her. Catherine was my past, and I'll always love her memory. But you—" He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You could be my future, if you wanted to be." The touch was gentle, reverent, and it sent electricity singing through Sarah's veins. She hadn't been touched with tenderness in so long. John had been practical even in affection, his kisses perfunctory, his embraces brief. This felt different. This felt like being seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Cole said honestly. "Scared of feeling again, of risking again, of opening my heart to someone who might leave. But I'm more scared of living the rest of my life alone, when happiness might be standing right in front of me." "This is crazy. We just met." Sometimes crazy is exactly what we need. Sarah knew she should be sensible, should maintain distance, should protect her heart. But when Cole's thumb brushed against her cheek, when his eyes darkened with an emotion she recognized as desire, sensibility fled. "If we do this," she said, her voice barely audible, "we go slow. I need time to know you, to trust you, as slow as you need," Cole promised. "I'm not going anywhere, and if it doesn't work out, then we remain employer and employee, and no one gets hurt." But Sarah, he cupped her face in both hands, the gesture achingly tender. "I think it's going to work out just fine." Then, with a gentleness that made her want to weep, he pressed his lips to her forehead and stepped back. "Get some rest," he said, his voice rough. "Tomorrow we'll tell the children, get you settled and start figuring out how this is going to work." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. As she walked back to the house on trembling legs, she touched her forehead, where his lips had been, and wondered what on earth she'd just agreed to. But deep down, beneath the fear and uncertainty, a tiny seed of hope had taken root. Maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The next morning, Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains and the sound of children's laughter. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then memory rushed back. Cole, the ranch, the job offer, that gentle kiss on her forehead that had kept her awake half the night. She dressed quickly in another of Catherine's dresses, this one a pale yellow that made her feel like a different person. Downstairs, she found Martha and her 4 children in the kitchen, Emma and Lucy setting the table while James helped Thomas wash his hands. "There she is," Martha said cheerfully. "Perfect timing. Breakfast is ready, and Cole's waiting to talk to all of you." As if summoned, Cole appeared in the doorway. In the morning light, he looked even more imposing than he had yesterday. Tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair slightly mussed, his jaw shadowed with stubble. But when he saw Sarah, his expression softened into something that made her pulse quicken. "Morning," he said simply. "Good morning?" Sarah replied, suddenly shy. Martha looked between them with barely concealed satisfaction, then clapped her hands. "All right, everyone sit. We have things to discuss." Once they were all settled around the table, Cole cleared his throat. "James, Emma, Lucy, Thomas, I've asked your mother to stay here at the ranch. She's going to help me run the household, and you're all going to live here with us. How do you feel about that?" 4 pairs of eyes turned to Sarah, seeking confirmation. She nodded. "It's true. Mr. Branson has offered us a home." "A real home?" Emma asked, her voice small and hopeful. "Not just for one night. A real home," Cole confirmed. "For as long as you want to stay." Thomas climbed down from his chair and walked straight to Cole, looking up at him with serious eyes. "Are you going to be our new papa?" The question hung in the air, like a held breath. Sarah's cheeks flamed. "Thomas, that's not... We're not..." But Cole didn't look embarrassed. Instead, he knelt down to Thomas's level, meeting the little boy's gaze directly. "I'm not trying to replace your papa," he said gently, "but I'd like to be your friend, someone who takes care of you and your mama and your brother and sisters. Would that be okay?" Thomas considered this seriously, then nodded. "Okay. Can I see your horses?" Cole laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "After breakfast, I'll show you the whole ranch." As they ate, Sarah watched her children respond to Cole. James remained reserved but respectful. Emma chattered away about the flowers in the garden. Lucy asked quiet questions about the animals, and Thomas simply decided that Cole was his new favorite person, refusing to leave his side. It should have felt strange, this instant domesticity. Instead, it felt terrifyingly natural. After breakfast, Cole took the children outside for their promised tour while Sarah helped Martha clean up. The older woman hummed as she worked, occasionally shooting Sarah knowing looks that made her want to squirm. "Out with it," Sarah said finally. "Whatever you're thinking, just say it." Martha grinned. "I'm thinking that boy hasn't smiled like that since before Catherine died. I'm thinking those children of yours need a father. And Cole needs a family. And I'm thinking that dress looks mighty fine on you." "Martha, don't Martha me. I've got eyes, girl. I saw the way he looked at you last night, and I saw the way you looked right back. There's chemistry there, plain as day." "It's too soon," Sarah protested. "I'm a widow. He's a man who's been alone too long, and you're a woman who deserves to be loved properly. not just tolerated or provided for, but cherished. And unless I miss my guess, Cole Branson is exactly the kind of man who'll do the cherishing. Sarah's throat tightened. Oh, what if I'm not ready? What if I can't be what he needs? Martha set down her dishcloth and took both of Sarah's hands in hers. Honey, love isn't about being ready. It's about being willing to try, to risk, to open your heart even when you're scared to death. You've been through hell, and so has Cole. Maybe you two are exactly what each other needs. Before Sarah could respond, a shriek of laughter came from outside. Through the window, she could see Cole swinging Thomas around while Emma and Lucy danced in circles, and James actually smiled. Her children looked happy. More than that, they looked safe. One day at a time, Martha said softly. That's all you need to think about. Can you stay one more day? Sarah watched her children playing with a man who'd been a stranger yesterday and thought about the alternative, packing them back into that wagon, heading to Silver Creek, working herself to death for pennies while they went hungry. Yes, she said. I can stay one more day. Martha squeezed her hands. Then that's enough. Tomorrow will take care of itself. The first week passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. Sarah learned the rhythms of the ranch. Early mornings helping Martha with breakfast, midday lessons teaching the children their schoolwork, afternoons managing the household accounts and planning meals, evenings filled with laughter around the dinner table, and always Cole was there, not hovering, not demanding, just present. He fixed the broken hinge on the children's door without being asked. He brought Sarah flowers from the garden with a shy smile. He taught James how to rope a fence post. He carried Thomas on his shoulders while checking cattle. Every day, Sarah fell a little bit more. It terrified her. 10 days after their arrival, Sarah woke in the middle of the night to the sound of someone moving around downstairs. Heart pounding, she grabbed her shawl and crept down, ready to defend her children if necessary. Instead, she found Cole sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, a bottle of whiskey and an untouched glass in front of him. Cole, she said softly. He looked up, and the raw pain in his eyes made her ache. I'm sorry. Did I wake you? What's wrong? He laughed bitterly. Today was her birthday. Catherine's. She would have been 30 years old. Sarah moved closer slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. Do you want to talk about it? I thought I was past this, Cole said, his voice rough. Thought I'd moved on. Then tonight I realized I forgot. This morning I woke up and didn't immediately think it's Catherine's birthday. I was thinking about you instead. About Sarah and how pretty you looked at breakfast, and I felt guilty as hell. Cole, I'm not ready, he said desperately. I thought I was, but I'm not. I'm sorry, Sarah. I should never have asked you to stay. It's not fair to you. Sarah's heart cracked, but she didn't cry. Instead, she pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. John died 6 weeks ago, she said quietly. And I didn't love him the way you loved Catherine, but he was my husband, the father of my children. And do you know what I felt when he died? Cole looked at her, waiting. Relief, Sarah confessed. Horrible, shameful relief that I wouldn't have to spend the rest of my life in a loveless marriage. That maybe someday I might find something more. Does that make me a terrible person? No, Cole said immediately. It makes you honest. Exactly. And it's honest that you're grieving, that you feel guilty for moving on, that you're scared. She reached across the table and took his hand. But Cole, Catherine is gone. You loving her, honoring her memory, that will never change. But she wouldn't want you to stop living, would she? Cole's fingers tightened around hers. No. She used to make me promise that if something happened to her, I'd find someone else. Said she couldn't bear the thought of me alone. Then honor that promise, not by forgetting her, but by allowing yourself to be happy again. What if I hurt you? Cole whispered. What if I can't give you everything you deserve? What if you do? Sarah countered. What if we both take a chance, and it's the best decision we ever make? They sat in silence, hands clasped, a weight of grief and hope balanced between them. Finally, Cole lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I want to try, he said. God help me, I want to try. Then we try, Sarah agreed. Together, one day at a time. One day at a time, Cole echoed. That night marked a turning point. Cole stopped holding himself at a distance, stopped second-guessing every kindness, and Sarah stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop, stopped protecting her heart so carefully. They began courting properly. Cole would take Sarah for evening walks after the children were in bed. their conversation flowing easily as they discovered shared values and dreams. He told her about growing up on the ranch, about meeting Catherine at a church social, about the devastation of losing her and his unborn child. Sarah told him about her childhood as the daughter of a strict preacher, about her arranged marriage to John, about the slow realization that she'd never be anything more than a convenience to her husband. "You deserve more than that," Cole said fiercely one evening as they stood by the garden fence watching the sunset. "You deserve to be someone's first thought in the morning and last thought at night. You deserve poetry and passion and all the things you've never had." "I don't need poetry," Sarah said, though her heart raced at his words. "I just need honesty, kindness, someone who sees me as more than just a mother or a housekeeper." Cole turned to face her fully, his expression intense. "I see you, Sarah. I see the way you hum while you cook. I see how you check on each child 3 times before you go to bed yourself. I see the little smile you get when you're reading. I see the woman you are, not just the roles you play." "Cole," Sarah breathed. "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I tried not to. Told myself it was too soon, too fast. But Sarah, when you walk into a room, everything gets brighter. When you smile at me, I feel like I can do anything, and when you're near me—" He reached up and cupped her face with one large calloused hand. "When you're near me, I remember what it feels like to want to live instead of just survive." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "I'm scared." "So am I. But I'm more scared of letting you go." Sarah leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. "John never told me he loved me. Not once in 8 years of marriage." Cole's jaw tightened. "Then he was a fool, because you are so easy to love, Sarah Mitchell. So achingly easy." She opened her eyes and found him looking at her with such tenderness it stole her breath. "Kiss me," she whispered. "Please, Cole, kiss me." For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then, slowly, giving her time to change her mind, he lowered his head and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, almost chaste, but then Sarah's hands came up to grip his shirt, and Cole's arm wrapped around her waist, and something ignited between them. The kiss deepened, became hungry and desperate, and full of weeks of denied desire. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said hoarsely. Sarah's eyes flew open. "What? Marry me? Not right away if you're not ready, but eventually. Marry me and make this real. Let me be a father to your children. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved." "Cole, this is crazy." "I don't care. Life's too short to play it safe, Sarah. I wasted 5 years being afraid to feel anything. I'm done being afraid." He pulled back to look at her, his dark eyes burning with intensity. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't lie awake at night thinking about me the way I think about you. Tell me I'm alone in this, and I'll never mention it again." But Sarah couldn't tell him that, because she did feel it. This wild, terrifying, exhilarating thing blooming between them, because she did think about him constantly, because somewhere between collapsing on that dusty road and standing in his arms under a Wyoming sunset, she'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love. "I can't tell you that," she admitted, "because it wouldn't be true." Hope blazed across Cole's face. "Then say yes. Say you'll marry me." "I need time," Sarah said, even as her heart screamed yes. "I need to know this is real, that it's not just gratitude or loneliness or..." "How much time?" Cole interrupted. "A month? 3 months? A year? Tell me what you need, Sarah, and I'll give it to you. But don't ask me to pretend I don't want to spend the rest of my life with you." Sarah's mind raced. Every logical thought told her to wait, to be cautious, to protect herself and her children. But her heart, her foolish, hopeful heart, wanted to believe in fairy tales and second chances. 3 months, she said finally. "Give me 3 months to be sure. If we still feel this way at the end of summer, then yes, I'll marry you." Cole's smile could have lit up the entire Wyoming sky. 3 months, he agreed. "And Sarah, I'm going to spend every single one of those days proving to you that I'm the right choice." Then he kissed her again, and Sarah stopped thinking entirely. The next 2 months were the happiest of Sarah's life. Cole was true to his word, courting her with a dedication that would have been comical if it wasn't so heartfelt. He brought her wildflowers every morning. He left little notes tucked into her sewing basket. He taught her to ride horseback, his strong arms steadying her when she wobbled, and slowly, carefully, he became a father to her children. James, who'd been suspicious at first, gradually warmed to Cole after the man spent an entire Saturday teaching him woodworking. Emma adored him from day one, following him around like a devoted puppy. Lucy came out of her shell under his patient attention, and Thomas simply declared that Cole was the best almost papa ever. Martha watched it all with undisguised satisfaction. "I told you," she said to Sarah one afternoon. "Told you it would work out. You're insufferable when you're right," Sarah replied. But she was smiling. Not everything was perfect. There were difficult days when Sarah missed her old life, when the weight of her feelings for Cole terrified her. There were nights when Cole still reached for whiskey and Catherine's photograph, wrestling with grief and guilt. But they talked through it, held each other through it, chose each other, over and over again. 6 weeks into their 3-month agreement, Sarah woke to find Cole and the children missing. Concerned, she dressed quickly and headed outside, only to stop short at the sight before her. In the garden, Cole had set up a picnic blanket. James and Emma were hanging paper lanterns from the fence posts. Lucy was arranging wildflowers in mason jars, and Thomas was sitting in Cole's lap, watching everything with wide eyes. "What's all this?" Sarah asked, her throat tight. Cole stood, setting Thomas gently on the ground, and walked over to her. He was dressed in his best clothes, his hair neatly combed, his expression nervous. "I know we agreed to wait 3 months," he said. "But Sarah, every day I wake up loving you more than the day before. Every night I go to sleep grateful you're under my roof. And I realized that waiting isn't about being sure. I'm already sure. It's about giving you time to be sure, too." He took both her hands in his, and Sarah realized with shock that he was trembling. "So, I'm asking again, right here in front of your children who already call me Papa when they think I can't hear. Sarah Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you fainted on that road?" And I whispered, "You're mine now." Sarah looked at her children, all watching with hopeful faces. She looked at Martha, who'd appeared from the house with tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked at the home Cole had given them, the safety, the love. And she looked at Cole, this man who'd saved her life in more ways than one, who'd shown her that love could be gentle and fierce and true all at once. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and sure. "Yes, I'll marry you." Cole let out a whoop of joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while the children cheered and Martha dabbed at her eyes. When he set her down, he kissed her soundly, not caring who was watching. "I love you," he said against her lips. "God, Sarah, I love you so much." "I love you too," she replied, and realized with wonder that she meant it completely. They were married 2 weeks later, in a simple ceremony at the local church, with Martha as witness, and all 4 children standing with them. Sarah wore a new dress, the first thing she'd bought for herself in years, and Cole couldn't stop staring at her like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, when Cole kissed her with a tenderness that promised a lifetime of love, Sarah felt something inside her heal. All the years of loneliness, of feeling unseen and unloved, melted away. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Cole carried her over the threshold of his bedroom, their bedroom now, and set her gently on the bed. "Are you nervous?" he asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes," Sarah admitted. "John and I, it was never like this, never intimate or tender." Cole's jaw tightened. "Then I'll spend the rest of our lives showing you how it should be, how you should be touched, how you should be loved." And he did, with infinite patience and gentle hands, with whispered praise and tender kisses. Cole showed Sarah what it meant to be cherished, showed her that her body wasn't just a vessel for bearing children or a duty to be performed, showed her pleasure she'd never imagined existed. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Sarah traced patterns on Cole's chest and marveled at how completely her life had changed. "What are you thinking?" Cole murmured, his fingers playing with her hair. "That I fainted on that road expecting to die," Sarah said softly, "and instead I found everything I never knew I needed." Cole pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You're mine now," he whispered, echoing those first words he'd spoken to her. "And I'm yours. Forever." "Forever," Sarah agreed, and finally believed in fairy tales. Epilogue. 1 year later, Sarah stood at the kitchen window, watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in shades of gold and pink. In the yard, Cole was teaching James and a new ranch hand how to mend fence posts. Emma and Lucy were helping Martha in the garden, and Thomas, now 4 years old and sturdy as a little bull, was helping by providing enthusiastic but unhelpful commentary. Her hand drifted to her stomach, where a new life grew. Their first child together due in the spring. When she told Cole last week, he'd cried, actual tears streaming down his weathered face as he knelt before her and pressed his ear to her still flat belly. "Thank you," he'd whispered. "Thank you for giving me another chance at this." The kitchen door opened and Cole came in, smelling of horses and sunshine and home. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands coming to rest over hers on her stomach. "How are my girls doing?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. "It might be a boy," Sarah pointed out. "Nope, I've decided. It's a girl, and she's going to look just like her mama." Sarah laughed and leaned back against his chest. "You're impossible. You love me anyway." "I do," she agreed, turning in his arms to face him. "More than I ever thought possible." Cole's expression softened. "Do you ever think about that day when you collapsed on the road?" "Every day," Sarah said honestly. "I think about how scared I was, how desperate, how certain I was that we were going to die." She reached up and cupped his face. "And then you appeared like an answer to a prayer I didn't even know I'd been saying." "I think about it too," Cole admitted. "About how close I came to taking a different route that day. About how my whole life changed in the span of a heartbeat." He leaned down and kissed her softly. "Best decision I ever made, bringing you home. Best decision I ever made, saying yes." They stood there in the warm kitchen, wrapped in each other's arms, while outside their children played, and the ranch hummed with life and possibility stretched out before them like an open road. Sarah had collapsed on that dusty Wyoming road expecting death. Instead, she'd found everything: home, family, love, and a future brighter than anything she'd dared to dream. And when Cole whispered, "You're mine now," against her ear, Sarah smiled and whispered back, "And you're mine, forever." The end.